Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I hope some. Let me see.
Voice is not clear, sir.
Voice is not clear. Okay.
Disturbance is coming, sir. Disturbance is coming, sir.
Pardon?
Disturbance is coming.
Yeah, can you hear me now? How about now? Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is better?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Right. Now see. Yeah, this is Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, 1678. So can you see the presentation? I hope you can.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now this is the 1678 copy from the British Library. If anyone can read it, so that you will know what this book is all about. Can anyone quickly read it? Yeah, Farhat, your mic is on, so you can read it.
From the picture I have to read, sir.
Yes.
The Pilgrim's Progress from this world to that which is to come. Delivered under this similitude of a dream, wherein is discovered the manner of his setting out his setting out his dangerous journey and safe arrival at the defied country.
Yeah.
By John Bunyan.
Yeah, Desired Country.
Desired Country by John Bunyan.
Yeah. Well, so it gives you the place where it is published, London, okay, printed 1679. So this is the copy. Now, this is quickly let us go to what is this about. And I already referred to the sources where you can find the text of this. An extremely popular text translated into hundreds of languages all over the world, despite the sectarian differences, whether you profess that religion or not. Pilgrim's Progress has become the allegorical text. So whenever you talk about an allegory, you invariably end up talking about Pilgrim's Progress. Now this is John Bunyan. These are certain biographical details about John Bunyan, and sure most of you can find them in Encyclopedia Britannica, okay, or any other source. So Bedford and 28 to 1688. Now, Bunyan is the most charismatic of the preachers. He was a preacher, he was a writer, and though he was not very well educated, he did not have a formal schooling. And his father was a tinker. Tinker is somebody who goes around repairing, goods. So he was a kind of an itinerant professional. And he was greatly influenced by the King James Bible, which has come out in 1611. So it was almost 30 years in circulation by the time John Bunyan started reading and writing. So he was self-taught. There is another term for it in English called autodidact, which means self-taught. And he taught himself to read the literature, especially the biblical and also the evangelical literature. And he lived during a very important period in British history, that is during the Civil War and also the Revolutionary period and also the Restoration period. Do you get me correct? He lived during the Civil War, right? During the Commonwealth period, there is Puritan period, and also the Restoration period. Now, this was a period when there were a lot of religious controversies, political doctrines. There was a clash of ideas. So Bunyan participated in that kind of environment. Now in 1658, Cromwell dies, and by then the Commonwealth is weakened, and 1660, Charles II returns from England. What happened to Charles I? Can anyone quickly tell me?
Charles I was assassinated.
Yeah, he was executed, not assassinated, but he was executed. Okay, yeah, good. So Charles II, who was in exile, Charles I's son, came back. This is called a period of restoration, and we all have seen how Milton was also in prison because of the restoration. And what happened after the restoration? Now, this particular restoration put an end to the religious liberty and tolerance that was there in England during Oliver Cromwell's period. Now, see, the Puritans, especially Cromwell's government, though they were Puritans, they ensured that there was religious freedom. Am I making myself clear? So, when Cromwell's government fell and Charles II came back, now this freedom was taken away. And again, the old order was restored. And certain very discriminatory practices and codes and acts were brought back, especially the Clarendon Code and the Uniformity Act. Now, that led to the persecution and the suppression of non-conformists. Now, let me quickly tell you who non-conformists are. Now, non-conformists are those who did not, just now I joined which topic is going on. Before you type them, just look at the chat, it's already there. Right? Now, who are non-conformists? Those who do not conform to the existing laws, to the existing doctrines of religions, they are called non-conformists. So, the Anabaptists, the Baptists, the Congregationalists, the Quakers, all of them were the non-conformist sects. People who did not belong to the Church of England. Are you able to understand that? The established religion. So they were persecuted, and so now it was dangerous. It was unlawful for a person to preach without permission from the established church. So in 1660, John Bunyan was arrested for preaching without license. He was put in prison for actually 3 months, but he refused to, accept the conditions of his release. So he ended up being in prison for 12 long years. Can you imagine that? So he was a prisoner of his own conscience, right? He could have agreed to the terms, but he didn't agree. So his imprisonment was prolonged for 12 years. So finally he came out. Now in 1672, he was elected the pastor of Bedford congregation. If you remember, 1671 is the year in which Paradise Lost had come out. John Bunyan, along with John Milton, is considered one of the great Puritan writers. Are we clear till here? If you say yes, I will continue.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now these are the important works. While he was in prison, he wrote an autobiographical kind of a work, which was a spiritual autobiography called Grace Abounding, 1666. Then, of course, The Pilgrim's Progress, his most famous work, with which he is identified, came out in 1678, and The Holy War in 1682. He wrote other poems and treatises also, but we are not immediately concerned with that. Now, to understand this, whatever text that you have here, you need to just focus on the background. Okay. Now somebody says backgrounds are not important. Just tell us about the story. But I think background is important for you to understand. Yes or no? Tell me.
Yes, sir, it is important.
Right. Now the background to this particular text is the Puritanism. Now we already referred to Puritanism. Puritanism began as a movement to purify the church. Okay. It was a movement within the Reformation movement. Okay. So the Puritans, this was a period in which he wrote, and then Puritanism refers to a set of beliefs rather than a sect. It is not an organized kind of a sect. Okay. Now, Reformation started in England during the time of King Henry VIII and continued during the time of Queen Elizabeth I. And later on, Edward and then Mary, there was a pause, and again after James, then again, Protestant, Christianity came back to England. Now, so there was a lot of unrest within England at that particular point of time. Now, Calvinist doctrine is very important to understand this particular text. Can anyone quickly read out this Calvinist? John Calvin was a reformer after Martin Luther. Okay, can anyone of you read these things for me, please?
This Calvinistic tenets includes the depravity of the man, the sovereignty of God, salvation by faith in Christ, God's election of individuals to salvations, the irresistibility of God's grace, the centrality of the Bible in the belief and in life.
These are the Calvinistic doctrines. They believe in the original sin, that is, man is basically fallen, he needs to be saved. Second, God is supreme. Third, only one can be saved by faith. Okay, sola fide in Latin it is called, meaning salvation by faith, and salvation by faith in Christ. Second, and another one is that the concept of the elect or the chosen. The concept of elect or the chosen, meaning some people are chosen to be saved. Of course, we discussed how Milton disagreed with this particular concept. Then, God's grace, okay, sola gratias in Latin, God's grace. Then, sola scriptura, meaning the centrality of the scriptures, sola scriptura. So, sola fide, sola Christos, okay, sola gratias, sola fide. So, these are the tenets of Luther, and also they were extended by John Calvin. Puritans subscribed to most of these views, and what was very important was the centrality of Bible in belief, not only belief inward, but also in public life also. The importance of faith in public life. This is very important. So Puritans did not believe that religion and their public life were two different things. They professed their faith and practiced their faith. So they did not say that, they did not believe that you need to pray to God, and when you are out, you can do whatever you want. No, they practiced their faith even in their professions. Okay? So if you are not supposed to steal, if you are in a profession, if you are a seller, you are not supposed to cheat your customers. Okay? That's their faith. Can you understand this concept?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so Puritans were against the ritualistic model of church service and all that. Okay. Now, their primary concern was the application of God's providence to every area of personal life. They believed that whatever happened was because of God's plan. Is that clear? They believe that everything happens according to a divine plan. Nothing is random. They completely believed in the sovereignty of God over human fate, or not fate, human actions. Okay? Well, now, another aspect that is useful for you to understand this text is life was considered as a kind of a warfare, a struggle against sin. Can anyone quickly read this, please?
Life is a warfare against sin.
Yeah.
They believed that every facet of human experience should be motivated by a dynamic Christianity. Self-discipline preceded by self-examination was extremely important. Life had purpose. God gave every individual a calling and the talents or gifts to follow that calling in honor and under the scrutiny of God. They had no piecemeal view of life. Should I continue, sir?
Continue, please.
Sorry?
Please continue. Go ahead.
There was no sacred and secular, only obedience and disobedience, and all vocations were holy callings. Bunyan was not a Puritan in the sense he was not interested in purifying the church. He simply stressed the centrality of Bible and free worship instead of the liturgy. He discouraged denominational labels.
Thank you very much for that clear reading. Now, I think this is important for you to understand Bunyan's attitude towards, his religion and, his faith and the way he puts in his text. So every vocation was holy, okay? No job was beneath anybody, okay? So, and then dignity of labor and work, and self-examination, self-discipline. Now, when you consider warfare, what in earlier times was called psychomachia, meaning the war that goes on between, in the conscience itself, that whole life is a warfare against sin. Now, this is a warfare that is presented, a spiritual warfare that is presented in the text called Pilgrim's Progress. Okay? Now, yeah. Now, quickly note down, if you are noting down quickly, you can note down a couple of things here. The models that were available for Bunyan when he was writing the Pilgrim's Progress for the sermon, he uses the popular, form of discourse that was available, a religious discourse that was given by priests. So sermons were printed, they were available for people. So many of the elements of the sermon are used by Bunyan in Pilgrim's Progress. Second is allegory. Now here, let us pause for a minute and then quickly. Now, what is an allegory? Now, it was also given as a concept in your background. Now, allegorein in Greek means speaking to others speak. To speak other. Okay? Ale is other. Okay? Now, to speak something else is called allegory. Meaning, allegory refers to any kind of narrative, whether it is prose or poetry. Verse means poetry. Any narrative in prose or in poetry or verse, which which has two levels of signification. So you can understand it at one level, at a literal level. You can understand it at a different level, the second level. Both have complete meaning by themselves. For instance, take this text for instance, Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Now, who is the pilgrim here? A pilgrim is a person who is going on a journey, whose destination is a holy land or a shrine. Okay. Now that is a literal sense in which you can understand. But at an allegorical level, this pilgrim is a human being who is living his life, and through his life, he or she is battling with various forces which which stop him or her from reaching the final goal. Are you able to understand this? Okay. Can anyone read this for me so that it will be, I think,
Allegory.
yeah.
An allegory is a narrative, whether in prose or
Allegory.
verse,
Go ahead
You
on.
want
Yeah.
in which the agents and actions, and sometimes the setting as well, are contrived by the author. So contrived or contrived?
Contrive.
Contrived by the author to make coherent sense on the literal or primary level of signification, and at the same time to signify a second correlated order of signification.
Thank you. Thank you. Some of you have your mobiles on, your cameras on, and you are, you are really, distracting the people who are focused here. Okay, please switch off your cameras. Allegory. Now, see what is an allegory? It's a narrative wherein look at these agents, that is characters, actions, sometimes the whole setting itself. Is designed by the author to make a coherent sense, which could be literal, that is primary level of signification, and also a correlated meaning, which is the second order of significance, the secondary signification. So in an allegory, there are two: primary signification, what immediately strikes you; second, what is signified through a correlation. This plot, this particular character, literally refers to a particular character, but also refers to something else. Okay? There are two types of allegories. One is historical and political allegory, where the characters could be real people in history, like you have Absalom and Achitophel, wherein King David represents Charles, okay, and Absalom represents the Duke of Monmouth. So the biblical, story, in a literal sense, means something, but it is referring to the political context of England at that particular time, the question of succession. Just as Absalom revolts against King David, Duke of Monmouth, is rebellious. He rebels against Charles II. So this is a political and historical allegory. Second is the allegory of ideas, where now characters represent concepts and the plot allegorizes an abstract doctrine or thesis. Pilgrim's Progress is an allegory of ideas, because here the journey of life, the concept of destruction and salvation, the concept of sin, the concept of temptation, okay, good, evil, all these actually are allegorized. These are all abstract ideas, and these are given a concrete shape. Now, dear friends, when you are thinking about allegory, also keep this in mind, that personification plays a very important role in allegory. Meaning, what is personification? Can anyone quickly tell me? What is personification?
Objectifying
It is
an
like-
idea.
Yeah, objectifying. Go ahead.
Objectifying an idea.
Yeah, objectifying an idea. Yeah, an idea is given a concrete form. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? Shobha, I can see some name here. Yeah, your mic is.
Yes, yes, sir. It is like we can imagine a person with a other person.
Imagine a person with other person. What does it mean?
Personification. That is how to tell, sir. I am not getting. 1 minute, sir.
Yeah. But you attribute human qualities. Okay. Yeah. Somebody else is want to speak. Yeah. Right. So we just look up attributing of human qualities to abstract things like love, death, okay? Pain, suffering, eternity, all this, okay? They are given concrete forms. Now, another device that was available for John Bunyan was a spiritual autobiography. So we already referred to that, Grace Abounding. So this particular Pilgrim's Progress can also be seen as a kind of a spiritual autobiography. Okay, because just like the character, the protagonist, who is the protagonist, by the way, quickly? Who is the protagonist?
The lead in the story.
Yeah, the lead character in the story is called protagonist. The opponent is called antagonist. In Greek, agon means struggle. Agon means struggle. So proto and anti, these are the two kind of struggles that one finds. So protagonist is the chief character. Now the Christian is the chief character in Pilgrim's Progress. So what happens to him is his struggle through the life's journey, okay, that forms the subject of this particular narrative. So it can be considered as a kind of a spiritual autobiography. Then another thing is, another model which was available to Bunyan was dream phenomena, where you find it in Chaucer, it's the medieval period, okay, you find it in Piers Plowman, in William Langland, wherein the narrative begins, wherein a person sleeps and sees a dream. Like in Dante's, Divine Comedy also, the narrator falls asleep, and in his sleep he sees a vision. This is called a dream vision or a dream phenomena. What happens here in this particular text called Pilgrim's Progress is the narrator also is falling asleep. He falls asleep, and in his vision he sees a man, okay, and then that's how the narrative begins. Okay, are we comfortable till here? Right. Now, what is exactly the story about? Well, can anyone read this? Because, this is something interesting for many of us here. Yeah.
This story,
Yeah.
John Bunyan's primary purpose is to
Just a
teach.
second. John Bunyan. Okay, John Bunyan. Okay.
Okay, John Bunyan primary purpose is to teach and edify, but it is equally clear that both in theory and practice he believes story to be a powerful means of releasing truth. His main character, Christian, flees from the city of destruction and starts on an adventure, some pilgrimage to the celestial city.
Just a second. Celestial city.
Celestial city.
Yeah, celestial
Along
means heavenly. Okay, celestial.
Okay.
Heavenly.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Along the way, he encounters pliable and obstinate wallows in the slough of despond. Meets theoretical worldly wise man. Learns in the interpreter's house, unburdens at the cross, clambers up the hill of difficulty, crosses the plain of Ace, fights with Apollyon. Okay. It's an angel. Okay. Trugs.
Yes. Hebrew it is Abaddon, okay, angel of destruction, Sheol, okay.
Okay. Through the valley of the shadow of death, suffering and doubting. Suffers in doubting castle. Converses. Doubting castle. Converses with faithful and unfaithful pilgrims. Sees the ultimate goal from the delectable mountains. Enjoys the land of Beulah, crosses the river of death, and finally enters the celestial city.
Celestial.
Oh, sorry, celestial city.
Celestial city. Thank you. Thank you for that reading. Well, don't mind me correcting your pronunciation.
No, no, sir. Thank you. I'm obliged.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Now, this is the story, dear friends. Now, there is this, character called Christian. At the beginning of the story, the narrator, in his sleep, sees this man. He's carrying a burden. Okay, obviously the burden on his shoulders, which weighs him down, is the burden of sin. And he's reading a parchment. Obviously, the parchment refers to the scriptures. And he is convicted of his own sin. And he is filled with despair. Now he knows that he is a sinner and he is faced with judgment. How can he escape that punishment? So he is in an agony and he says, what shall I do? Who shall save me? Okay. Now, and at that point of time, he's convicted of his own sin and he is restless. He goes home and the people at home think he is mad, but then, he runs away, he comes out, and then he meets an evangelist who tells him that, this city that he lives in, that is this world that we live in, is a temporary world which is going to be destroyed, and he should flee or fly to salvation. And the evangelist means somebody who brings the good news. Evangelion. Evangelion means good news. He tells him that, look, you need to go through the wicket gate. There is a small gate. What is a wicket gate? Anyone here has an idea? Wicket gate? Wicket. Not wicket, but wicket. W-I-C-K-E-T. Wicket gate. No idea? Gate, you are aware? Yeah, tell me. Yeah, somebody wants to speak. Gate is, you all know a gate. Now, within that gate, you have a smaller gate. Okay, are you able to understand? So you don't open a huge gate. You only open the gate which is within the gate. That is called a wicket gate, a small, narrow gate. Okay. Now the path to salvation is through a small wicket gate, a narrow gate, which will take you out of this destruction. So he goes out, he tells others that, this city that we are living in is going to be destroyed, so we have to escape. Nobody believes him. They think that he's crazy. One person, Pliable, who is Pliable? Mr. Pliable. Now these are the characters, ideas which are given human form. Like pliable is an adjective. What is pliable? Something that can be easily, molded, easily bent. That is called pliable. So this man is not very strong in his opinions. And there is another person who is very strong called obstinate. These two people accompany. And finally, Pliable agrees to make the journey with the Christian, and they enter a slough or despond, a mire, a bog, and Mr. Help comes to pull them out. Pliable is no longer enthusiastic about undertaking this dangerous journey. He goes back, and then now there is this next worldly wise man who advises him that why are you taking this trouble of going through the wicket gate and all that? Why don't you go to why don't you take a shortcut? Go to Mr. Legality and his son Civility, and then again he meets the evangelist, and who again redirects him. So he goes through the wicket gate, and then he goes to the interpreter's house, then he goes to the station of the cross where his sin falls off. Okay, and then he passes through various stages of spiritual warfare, there is hill of difficulty, there is a valley of shadow of death, there is a battle with, evil epitomized in Napoleon, okay? And then there is a doubting castle where people are not convinced of their own, should I say, decision. And finally, through the land of Beulah, happiness, delectable mountains, he crosses the river of death, and finally enters the celestial city. Now, this is the story which you find in. Now, is it a literal story that Bunyan is telling us here, or is it just a story, or does it speak of something else? Okay, any quick response here? He is allegorizing. Now, every idea that one encounters in spiritual discussion is given an objective form, like pliable postulate, valley of shadow of death, okay, worldly wise men, Mr. Legality, Vanity Fair, okay, hell. So, yeah. Now, this is the map of the journey, journey, and yeah, you can just have a look at it later. Now, can anyone read out this quickly? Stages of salvation in allegory.
Calling of the elect.
Yeah.
Stages of,
Do you want to continue?
stages of,
Yeah. Are you
Yes,
sure? Or
yes,
is
sir.
it name that you have put there? Go ahead.
Sir?
Yeah, I can see your name here somewhere. Yeah, go ahead, please.
stages, yeah. Stages of salvation in the allegory. Calling of the elect, justification,
Sorry. Just a second.
sanctification,
Hello.
redemption.
Please, Miss Shobha. Now, elect, not elect.
Yes, sir.
Elect is a noun.
Yes,
Elect is a verb.
elect.
You elect somebody, okay? So somebody who is elected becomes the elect. Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir.
Go ahead.
Elect, okay. Calling of the elect, justification, sanctification, and redemption.
These are the stages in the salvation. Okay? So now the allegory that Bunyan presents, begins here. The Christian at the beginning of the story, he is convinced of his own sin, and then, he repents, and his faith, okay, and then he is justified, then he is sanctified, then finally he is redeemed. Well, now these are, anyone else can read this because this is very important. You can take this is a summary of go ahead.
The journey from the city of destruction to the celestial
Just a
city.
second, Bhagyasri, I think Farhat wanted to read first, so allow her and then we'll come back to you, right?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I start, sir?
Read it, yeah.
The journey from the city of destruction to the celestial city. To the cross.
Now, just a second. Before the cross, there is one Roman numeral. Read that also.
Evangelist.
Just a second. 1 to the cross. Right, okay. Say that.
To the cross.
No,
Evangelist.
Just a second. Before that, there is one thing. What is there?
Nothing is there, sir. Only to the cross.
Evangelist,
Evangelist, pliable, slot of despond.
evangelist,
Excuse me. Hold on. There are Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you see them?
Yes, sir.
So read 1. Stage 1 is to the cross. Read like that. Yeah.
To the cross. Evangelist, pliable, slot of despond, Mr. Worldly, wise man, legality, civility, wicked gate, burden falls away. Second, from the cross through the valley of the shadow of death, Apollyon.
Good.
Third, from the valley of the shadow of death through Vanity Fair. Fourth, from Vanity Fair to the Delectable Mountains. Fifth, from the Delectable Mountains to the Celestial City.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now, this is the plan of the Pilgrim's Progress. So, there are 5 units or 5 stages of the journey. Basically, this is about a journey that the Christian undertakes and the various adventures that he faces. He meets a number of people. He is involved in number of events and incidents. So there is a struggle. So there are opposing forces. There are forces which help him. He makes friends. There are enemies. He fights. Okay? And he gets help. He gives help. Finally, he reaches the celestial city. So these are the 5 stages. So the first stage is mostly made up of the first few pages in the in your book. Okay? So first one is the character is the evangelist, then the pliable, then the place is slow, despondent, then there is a worldly wise man who gives the wrong advice, meeting civility and legality. There is a wicket gate. What is the wicket gate symbolize? It symbolizes the choice of following truth. Are you able to understand? Then to the cross, because when the pilgrim, when the Christian reaches the cross, the burden that he is carrying on his back finally falls away, meaning his sins are no longer there, his sins are forgiven. Then from the cross, once his sin is forgiven and he is free of his burden, then he has new challenges. Okay? So he, and then there is through the valley of the shadow of death. Okay? He passes through that where he meets, Napoleon, and then he conquers him and then defeats him. Then through the Vanity Fair. Oh God, somebody else is presenting. Are you able to see my presentation?
No, sir.
Somebody is presenting. Yeah, just a second. Yeah, can you see it now?
Yes, sir. Now we
Yes,
can
sir.
see. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, stage 4, Vanity Fair is a worldly, sinful world, full of pleasures, attractions, distractions. From there, finally to the celestial city. Well, now this allegory is made very lively by John Bunyan by use of dialogue. Okay, so just like a drama, this allegory uses not merely narration, not just like that Christian went there or he did that or she did that, but it is through an exchange of dialogues that the action becomes lively. The narrative is able to sustain the interest of the readers. So no wonder that this book has been in circulation for hundreds of years. Okay, the most popular kind of a spiritual work. And it's also, realistic. So the central metaphor is here the journey, right? The pilgrim who is moving from one station of life to another station. So the central metaphor is the journey. But through that, he shows the stages of a pilgrimage filled with struggles and triumphs of his traveler from the city of destruction to the celestial city. Quickly, there are various levels of allegory. Now, this is an allegory, but Pilgrim's Progress can be seen as an allegory which uses different levels of allegory. First is the individual allegory, where is the individual pilgrim. Okay, the pilgrim is, his travails and his triumphs and his own agonies. Okay, so the level of individual pilgrimage. Second is the biblical level of allegory, wherein certain episodes, certain events in the biblical narratives find correspondence in this allegory. Okay, so both from the Old and the New Testament. Now, from this biblical allegory, you can see that he takes from the Gospel of Mark, where the Christian meets the shining ones, the cross, then especially from Paul's letter to Ephesians, wherein this talks about the armor, every believer needs to arm himself or herself with his armor to fight against the evil. So now the armors, okay, where he defeats the Apollyon, okay. Then there is a third level. What is the third level? Can anyone read this? Third level. Theological level. Okay. There is the whole Calvinistic and Puritan allegory here. Faith. Okay. Now, can anyone quickly read it for me, please, so that I can move?
A theological level, sir.
Yeah.
A theological level permeates the allegory. Is that the correct pronunciation, sir? Permeates.
Permeates. Permeates is fills. Permeates is to fill. Okay.
Okay, permeates the allegory. Particularly in Christians being set apart or elected to make the journey, and then, after heeding the call to go on the pilgrimage, he exercises faith, repents of his wrongs, seeks forgiveness, grows in his newfound life, and perseveres to the end. The journey Christian takes is a pattern of Puritan theology.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Now, at the theological level, all this concept of being elected, okay, having a sense of the call, and then exercising faith, repenting, then asking for forgiveness, okay, then, all these stages of one's salvation fits into the Puritan theological perspective. That's why at a third level, it is a Puritan allegory, which is at a theological level. So we have seen individual level, biblical level, theological level. Then a historical level also, because many of the events and incidents and characters, episodes within this allegory in Pilgrim's Progress, they correspond to the 17th century contemporary economic, social, religious, political events. Can you see this? Can you understand this? If am I able to communicate with you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There are many events, characters, incidents within Pilgrim's Progress which correspond to the real political, social, economic, religious situation in 17th century England. That's why it's called, it has a level of allegory which corresponds to the historical level. Okay? So now, Bunyan makes use of different levels of allegory at different points of the time in his narrative. Then one needs to focus on the role of the narrator in this allegory, because the narrator is not only an outsider who is not only a spectator, but also participates in the action that takes place. Am I clear here? Look at the example. Now the narrator says, "Then I stepped to him that plucked him out and said, 'Sir, wherefore is it that this plot is not mended, that poor travelers might go hither with more security?'" Who is speaking these lines? The narrator. What does it mean? He is a part of the action that he is narrating. So, dear friends, the narrator not only presents the events that take place and also offers some commentary on them, but also to make it dramatic, becomes a part of the narrative. Are we clear till here?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, the narrator also, again, he performs the function of a kind of a commentator or a chorus. Okay. Well, so he gives his own understanding of what is being, depicted in the allegory. Now, dear friends, that is Pilgrim's Progress. Now you have the summary of that text in your instruction material. So I think with this background, you will be able to read it and prepare for your examinations. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll quickly run through the illustrations that were made by William Blake. William Blake is a very important poet, romantic poet. He also illustrated John Bunyan's Pilgrim. This is Blake. Now who can this be? Can you guess? The character in Pilgrim's Progress?
He's Christian.
Yeah, he's a Christian reading the scriptures and the burden, okay? And then the evangelist is guiding him to the wicket gate. Now the slow despond, Mr. Hell is taking him out. Now this is the Mount Sinai where the evangelist chides him for falling into Mr. Legality and civility's guile. Now this is the thunder and lightning from this judgment, okay? Then he meets the evangelist, then knocking at the wicket gate, okay? And then Apollyon, okay? Now these are the famous paintings by William Blake. Dear friends, I hope this has been helpful to you in understanding or in preparing for the text that you will read called the Pilgrim's Progress. Can I have any response from you quickly so that I can move on to another concept?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in this unit, there is another text called Areopagitica. Okay. Just a second. Yeah, I need to set it up to you. Right. Now, you can tell your friends where to locate it. It's on page number 255, right? Okay. I want now this text of Areopagitica is available. I can quickly give you. I'll give you Dartmouth College's address. Hold on a second, please. Can you see that? I just shared a link that will give you the text of Milton Areopagita. Okay? Yeah, there is a lot of disturbance from somebody's. Yeah, I think Shobha Ramani is mobile. Yeah, that's why I muted you. Okay, quickly. Areopagitica. Try to pronounce this. Can anyone try that?
Areopagitica.
Yeah, Areopagitica. Now, I don't understand in the chat why are people asking weird questions like which paper is it? You all know that it is paper 2. The timetable clearly tells that it is paper 2. Okay? Can there be any doubt about it? I think Bhagyasri, some has written which paper is it? Unit 5. Okay? Please. Okay. Areopagitica, 1644, a very important document in human history. Okay. Areopagitica, don't mumble and don't try to avoid pronouncing it. So, can anyone pronounce it for me?
Areopagitica.
Yeah, Areopagitica. Right. Good. Thank you.
Areopagitica.
Areopagitica. Okay. Now, 1644. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I think, we got a sample of the pronunciation. Happy. Now, 1644 copy of Areopagitica in the British Library. Now, this was printed by Milton, defying the, censors, defying the licensors, defying the act of the Parliament. So it was a seditious kind of a, not seditious, but it was a kind of a revolutionary, radical kind of an intervention that Milton undertook, because if you observe, there is only a date there, 1644 here, and there is a place, London. Okay? Can you see the name of the person who wrote it anywhere here?
M.
Yes,
John
sir.
Milton, sir.
Where?
M. John Milton.
Yeah. Areopagitica.
Exactly below this.
Yeah, John Milton for the liberty. Okay. Yeah. Now, liberty of what? Unlicensed printing. Can you see that? Okay. Unlicensed printing to the Parliament of England. Now, but there is no printer's name there. Are you able to understand it? So this book that doesn't have a license that is required by the law. So Milton here is actually defying the law. He's making a statement by printing a book without taking any permission or without taking a license, without registering his publication. Can you see this? An act of daring. Now, now what is Areopagitica about? Now, Areopagitica, whenever people talk about freedom of conscience, freedom of belief, freedom of expression, freedom of press, and liberty, they invariably talk about Areopagitica of 1644. Judges, thinkers, philosophers, invariably all the time they refer to John Milton's words in the 1644 document. So, dear friends, an extremely useful, not useful actually, I'm sorry for saying that, an extremely enabling kind of a document that Milton wrote. Can anyone quickly read this, because it gives you again a summary of it? Yeah.
This controversial pamphlet entitled Areopagitica was written by John Milton in 1644. It argues against the censorship of books before their publication and is often held up with the first impassioned plea of the free speech. Milton celebrates the vitality, correct only, no sir?
Yeah,
Pronunciation?
Yeah,
Vitality of books and condemns their destruction, saying one might as good almost kill a person as kill a good book. Ironically, two of Milton's books were later suppressed and burnt in the reign of Charles II. Milton says that we should be trusted to read different ideas in print and use reason to choose between them, rather than having temptation removed through censorship. Which wisdom can there be to choose without the knowledge of evil? Page number 12. He draws on the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve sinned by tasting the forbidden fruit. Although some people might blame God for allowing Adam to transgress, Milton praises him for giving humans freedom to choose, for the reason is not but choosing.
Thank you. Now the point is here, now Milton is actually arguing against censorship. Okay, the book is about a small, around 80 to 90 pages. It is about censorship, against censorship, that, and also freedom to read, freedom to believe, freedom to think, and this freedom cannot be curtailed by law. Okay, now Milton's argument is that people should be allowed to be exposed to different ideas, and it is for them to decide which idea to choose. He draws parallels from the Garden of Eden, where God gives humans the freedom to choose. He doesn't stop them. Okay? So the point here is that it is man, woman, who need to exercise caution, exercise prudence, discretion. So you cannot make people better or worse by loving them or stopping them from, dealing with ideas. So this is the importance of the Areopagitica. Now, You find a lot of parallels between Areopagitica and Paradise Lost because the whole argument about choice, okay, exposure to evil. What if God had not exposed Adam and Eve to the evil? Okay, any good would have come out of it. Okay, Adam should have obeyed God, but in spite of instead he chooses to disobey. So it's nothing about being available and unavailable. If something is there and you are automatically you become evil. It's not the logic that Milton believes. Now quickly about the title. Now the title comes from the word Areopagus in Greek, which means the hill of Ares, Ares. Okay. Now, so it comes from the Greek Areopagus, which refers to the hill in Athens. Athens, you all know, is a city-state in Greece. Okay, like Sparta, Athens, and this is actually the sovereign authority, or it's a kind of a court. Okay, so wherein Saint Paul also delivers his sermon, his famous speech against conformism, and he says that people should be allowed to seek truth. They should not be forced to stop. So Areopagiticus, the word Areopagitica comes from Areopagiticus, which is the 7th oration of Isocrates, not Socrates, but Isocrates, 4th century. Now Isocrates had a problem. He could not, he had nervousness, he could not face people. So usually he wrote and published, in the sense he circulated his arguments. Similarly, Milton takes the form of this submission to a highest court of appeals. And there is a difference between Isocrates and Milton. Now, Isocrates actually is asking Areopagus, the seat of power, to exercise their full power and control people's activities, whereas Milton does the opposite. He is actually pleading for what? What is he pleading for?
Justice.
Liberty.
Sorry, liberty.
Liberty. Okay. So Areopagus refers to a hill where you have this famous, you can call it a council, Athenian council, which is a supreme body. Milton is presenting his arguments to whom? To whom is he presenting the argument? He is presenting it to the British Parliament. Just like Isocrates submits it to the Areopagus, Milton is presenting his arguments to the British Parliament. Now, culturally,
British government school.
Pardon? Yeah. Now, in New York Public Library, you have this particular text from Milton's Areopagitica. A good book is the precious lifeblood of a master spirit, embalmed and treasured up on purpose to a life beyond life. This is taken from Areopagitica. A good book, a book is the lifeblood of a master spirit, and it has a life beyond life. Are you able to understand? So this is important for books. Now, the Supreme Court of America, the Supreme Court of the United States referred to Areopagitica in interpreting the First Amendment. Now, what is the First Amendment? The First Amendment is actually considered to be the cornerstone of democracy, of freedom of conscience. These are from the amendment. prevents the government from making laws which regulate and establishment of religion, or that would prohibit the free exercise of religion, or abridge the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of assembly, or the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. This particular, amendment was adopted in 1791. Actually, this is, a part of the Bill of Rights. Now, in 1215, some of you remember the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which consists of this right to petition for redressal of grievances. How many years ago did they talk about this? Magna Carta? 800 years ago, right? The Magna Carta, the document, contains this provision where every citizen has a right to petition. Now, Milton is using that right to petition the government. And this again has correspondence to the 1689 English Bill of Rights. Dear friends, you must remember that 1644, Areopagitica was published. 1689, you have the Bill of Rights. So the arguments of Milton in Areopagitica finally found a kind of an embodiment in the Bill of Rights. Now, why did we refer to the First Amendment? Because the First Amendment in the American Constitution guarantees freedom of conscience, meaning one, no government from now or in the future can establish any law to make a particular religion the state religion, or prohibit people from practicing any religion they want, professing any idea that they want. So this has been used in American history number of times to uphold freedom of conscience. Are you able to understand? Have I made the significance of this Areopagitica very clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, the immediate context, what was the immediate context? Because this was 1644, and then this is not there in your book. You can quickly make a note of this, that, John, Lilburn was arrested for, importing subversive books, and he was given a punishment. He was fined 500 pounds and then flogged. He was flogged for 2 miles. And Milton wrote it as a pamphlet against. Immediate context is Lilburn's treatment. Second is, it is a protest against the order issued by the Parliament in 1643, requiring government approval and licensing of all published books. So Milton was talking about freedom of press when? In 1644. So nothing should come between a man's beliefs, and his right to profess those beliefs. And Milton's own pamphlets on divorce and other topics were actually banned by these existing laws. So it was an act of protest. Now, quickly about the licensing acts in England. Now, the order came out in 1643, but even before 1643, before printing press came into existence, even before books were being printed, in 1408, the licensing of books was instituted. Manuscripts written were also in need of a license. So when you want to write something, when you want to circulate them, you need a license. This came out in 1408. And this was made use by many kings in England during the time of Henry VIII and Elizabeth and James. Now in 1637, the Star Chamber Decree came into existence. Now, Charles I, he promulgated a decree. Now, I'll tell you what Star Chamber is. Star Chamber is a it's a kind of a elite kind of a group within the government, council of ministers in the king. Actually, this is above the courts of that particular land. So it is an extrajudicial kind of a body, which was used to harass, to persecute opponents, to persecute revolutionaries, reformists, okay, religious and political. So the Star Chamber Decree 1637 was a very draconian kind of a decree, which regulated all printing and publishing. So in 1641, the Star Chamber was abolished because this is the beginning of the Civil War, and then there was a free for all. There was no licensing and all. Because of that, copyright was violated. People were writing all kinds of, printing all kinds of books, and then there was this, copyright infringement, and then people were incurring losses, plagiarism, and libel, slander, baseless allegations against people. So all this was brought to the notice of the Parliament by the Stationers' Company, and that is how the licensing order came into existence in 1643. This is again a repeat of the Star Chamber Decree of 1637. Now in protest, Milton printed Areopagitica, which was unlicensed and unregistered. Okay. Now, have you got the context clearly? Okay. Can I go through the summary of this? Okay. Nobody seems to be in the group now. I don't know whether you are there or
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
You can go through the summary.
Okay. Now see, we can conveniently divide this into four parts. Now in the introduction, Milton begins by appealing to the wisdom of the Parliament. Now this is what is called the encomium. Now in the encomium, that is in the praise, he talks about what the government is capable of doing, what good it is capable of doing, and he appeals to their good sense and wisdom. So this is a better way to conduct an argument, right? First you appeal to the wisdom of the people. You don't begin by outright attack. That's the wrong way, right? So Milton very wisely, makes himself agreeable to his audience by referring to their own conscience and referring to their own reason. Now, first, I started, but I did not have time to put it here. First, part one is about the history of censoring. Can you quickly write it down? Who first started censorship? He goes into the history and tells us about ancient times. Okay. The basic argument is, books preserve wisdom. So if you kill a good book, you are killing reason. Books are not mere physical entities, but they are embodiments of reason. So Milton says that if you kill a book, you are killing reason, and reason is very important for Milton because for him it is a gift that is given by God to humans. So to kill a book is to kill human reasons. Now in earlier times, he goes to ancient Greece and Rome, where he tells us what kind of books were censored. First thing is writings which were blasphemous and writings which were libelous, meaning which slandered people's personalities, okay? And those were the kinds of books which were banned. Second is in Rome, same. Libel and blasphemy, they were curtailed, but other books, in spite of different opinions, philosophy, okay, they were allowed. Then he comes to the Christian period wherein till 400 AD, now in your books it is given as 400 BC, so please, that's an error. There is no reference to heresies and Christianity in 400 BC. You begin with the first century AD, right? So 400 AD, books by heretics were condemned. Not till 4th century, people were allowed to write and speak and talk about whatever they want. And he brings us to the point wherein, it's a very important point, he says that during the Reformation, the Catholic Church used censorship to curtail or to stop new ideas from springing. Okay? So licensing is something that Milton very tactically identifies with the Roman Catholic Church. Okay? This is the first part. First part is about licensing, censorship in the ancient world till the Christian era. That is ancient Greece, ancient Rome, then early Christianity, 400 AD, till the Reformation. That is till the church was licensing and suppressing books by the religious reformers. Second part is, are you able to write it down? Part 2 is the significance of good reading. Is reading a good thing? And how was learning and reading? How was it, how was it understood in history? So he refers to the Christian scriptures, and he says in the Bible you have, you have examples of people being well read. Though they did not conform to the belief of a person, they read widely. He gives examples of Moses, Daniel who was in the court of the Persian king, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, okay, and Saint Paul. All of them were well read. So the point that Milton is driving here is that even in the scriptures, people were allowed to read all kinds of books, all kinds of information. Now, and then he takes us to the reading in the early church. Well, now to read widely, he gives us an example from Saint Peter's vision, where Saint Peter, he sees a carpet descending from skies, and there are all kinds of animals and crawling things and creatures there, and God, he hears a voice saying that, yeah, you can go out, kill, eat anything that you want. The point here is that, reading widely, reading everything despite its origins. This is the practice, according to Milton, of the scriptures and also the Christian history. Now, God doesn't want man to limit himself to few things. It extends to reading also. You can't be very, you can't proscribe the reading. The example that he gives is that God gives the Israelites manna in abundance, and then, Solomon also talks about the wisdom that can be gained through reading, okay? And Paul himself was very learned, and very important thing, I'll close here and then continue for, I think, 10 minutes in the next class, that virtue does not depend on innocence. This is very important. Can you hold on to that? Virtue does not depend on innocence. He says, cloistered virtue is no virtue. You can't make a person virtuous, either he or a she, by keeping them, ignorant of what goes around. So this is just like he gives the example of Garden of Eden. God did not protect Adam and Eve from the evil. He gave them a choice to make a decision. He did not think that the presence of evil would automatically lead Adam to, disobedience. Okay, I think I'll stop there. I'll ask you a question before I leave. Dear friends, I posted one link here. Okay, could any one of you click that link and land somewhere? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
It has opened the link for the speech, sir.
Oh yeah, okay, so now you can, till we meet again, so you can just go through the speech, okay? So amazing thing, you can read parts of it or whole of it, okay? And yeah, in my next class, I'll take just 10 minutes to complete this, and then we will move on to the other topics, okay? Yeah, have a nice day. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.